Hello friends, welcome to Gudaya. Today we will discuss philosophy of Kabir. So Saint Kabir had very long lifespan. Kabir born into a Julaha family. The birth and death years of Kabir, a prominent figure in Indian spiritual history, are widely debated among many scholars. He lived a long life that is predicted, and some scholars having dispute over it. So his family, Kabir found by a Muslim weaver named Niru and his wife Nima at Lahar Tara Lake and was raised by them. He later became a disciple of Bhakti Saint Swami Ramanandan Banarsi, who was known for his devotion and Vaishnavism and Advaita philosophy, which emphasizes the divine presence in every individual. Gail Ombet has divided Kabir in four major collections. His work and she has written a chapter in Seeking Begumpura. So, according to her, Adi Granth collection brings up primarily Nirguni Kabir. Many of Rajasthan collections are more Saguni Kabir and devotional Kabir, whereas Bija collection gives as Kabir the greatest iconoclast and philosopher, whereas oral tradition, in fact, very little overlaps with written collection. So, Kabir Mat Kabir's life is celebrated at the Kabir Mutt in the Kabir Choraha locality of Banarsi, which is dedicated to his memory, where Niru and Nima are also buried. Kabir's teaching and life story are chronicled in every text, including the Persian Devastan e Majehab, which described him as a Vaishnava yogi and disciple of Ramanand. Kabir poetry is very popular and known among folks and society. So this poetry is composed in 15th century and orally transmitted until 17th century, utilized a mix of dialectics including Sadhu, Kaddi, Khadi Boli, Braj, Bhojpuri, and Abdi. He also wrote exclusively in Bhojpuri in some of his work, reflecting simple yet profound ideas centered around devotion, mysticism, and discipline. His poems, referred to as banis, means utterance, are diverse forms such as a dohe, sloka, and sakhi. So the latter implying the poem as testimonies to the truth. So, significant work attributed to Kabir includes Kabir Bijak, Kabir Parsai, Sakhi Granth, Adi Granth into Sikh scriptures. So, Kabir Granthavali, however, textual variations exist across these works, and their authenticity has been subject to extensive scholarly debate. Notably, Solet Vauzabelli, a 20th century French scholar, conducted in depth analysis of Kabir text to discern their authenticity and origin. So, challenges with his poem and their oral transmission, which led to the modification and interpolation over time, and so while some verses were fabricated or altered out of respect and creative enthusiasm, scholars have worked to identify and preserve the poetry that genuinely reflect Kabir's original teaching. So Kabir's legacy is encapsulated in his influential, spiritually profound poetry that emphasizes on ultimate loving devotion to God. So authenticity of the Kabir's work is a complex issue, and they have been exclusively circulated and altered through centuries. It is recognized that some poems attributed to Kabir may have been written by others, or this complicates the task identifying his genuine work. So, philosophy of the Kabir is very popular. That is, we have to understand. So, Linda has points out that while some modern commentators have portrayed Kabir as synthesizer of Hinduism and Islam, this characterization is misleading. So, Kabir drew from various traditions selectively, and yet he clearly declared his independence from both major religions, and openly criticizing their follies and encouraging his followers to adopt a similar stance of autonomy and critical thinking. He used the language and remained a vocal critic, questioning every necessity of holy books. His verses emphasize direct understanding over scriptural readings. So, Kabir's critique extended to the religious practices of both Hindus and Muslims, which he saw as hypocritical and misguiding. He mocked ritualistic behaviors and emphasized inner reflection and the recognition of the divine within every individual. He asked people to look beyond religious identities and see all human beings as manifestation of God. So the major inspiration is drawn from Atma and Brahma. So Charlotte Baudewell interpreted Kabir's philosophy as aligning with Upanishad's concept of Brahma and Atma, the Advaita Vedantic tradition, which sees no distinction between soul and God, urging individuals to recognize their divine nature. However, Wow the Valley also noticed contradiction in Kabir's teaching regarding external devotion and inner realization, as suggesting that while Kabir promoted the journey toward recognizing Nirguna, the formless aspect of God, and he did not completely reject Saguna with the form devotion, forming it as the part of path of self realization. So Advaita philosophy is, of course, one of the inspiration of the Kabir. So Kabir's idea about divine as Nirguna Brahman, emphasizing a universal divinity transcending traditional monotheistic view, shows similarities with Adi Shankara's Advaita Vedanta, through with distinctive differences in their philosophical expression. Influence of the Islam cannot be denied on the Kabir. So David Lawrenson discussed the debate about the extent of Islamic influence on Kabir's philosophy and poetry. While some scholars argue that the Kabir mostly rejected Islam and drew primarily from Hindu tradition, others note that the influence of Sufi Islam mystic imaginary in his work. Kabir's use of sexual metaphor which invert traditional Sufi motifs of divine union suggests a nuanced engagement with Islamic concept. Additionally, there is a contention that the Sufi and Waqt ideas might have evolved through mutual interaction rather than one influencing the other. Despite these influences, Kabir critically assessed practice common in Islam such as cow slaughter using stark imaginary and moral questioning, reflecting a critical stance like Hindu critique of the same practices. So one of the interesting thing is that Rabindranath Tagore did the English compilation of the songs of Kabir, first published in 1915, has been influential especially in the West. However, it is contested in terms of authenticity. Critic V.C. Mishra suggests that only 6 of the 100 poems in Tagore's collection may be authentically Kabir's. Mishra also raises concern that the Tagore might have infused the translation with early 20th theological perspective, potentially distorting Kabir's original message. Despite these challenges, the poem in Tagore's compilation are acknowledged as part of Bhakti movement and considered valuable, even if some of likely composed by Kabir later admirers. So Kabir's radical views are very popular and known. So Kabir is known for his forthright views, often faced persecution during his lifetime, as indicated in his complete couplets, where he notes that speaking the truth invites violence, while dishonesty earned trust. Kabir's response to persecution was paradoxically welcoming. He saw surrender as a means to purify his character, as he expressed in his poetry that the surrender helped cleanse his persona without the need for soap or water. Legends about Kabir portray him as a figure who, despite being an underdog, triumphed over a various figure of authority such as sultans and Brahmins. These stories resonate with themes of social protest, are particularly appealing to the oppressed and marginalized. However, scholars like David Lawrenson question the authenticity of these legends, now noting inconsistencies and the lack of historical evidence to support the narrative of persecution. So literature and culture, Kabir is very popular. So Kabir's literary legacy has been preserved and promoted by his disciples, Vagadas and Dharmadas, and further propagated through the collection of his songs by Chiti Mohan Sen, which were translated into English by Rabindranath Tagore more recently. And Arvind Krishnan Mehrotra has provided new English translation and noted for capturing the original ferocity and improvisation energy of Kabir's poetry. So Kabir, in Banaras, 2 temples are dedicated to Kabir, one maintained by Hindus and the other by Muslims. It both features similar worship practices, including daily song, session, arti, distribution of prasad, reflecting the inclusive nature of Kabir's teaching. So followers of Kabir adhere to vegetarianism and abstain from alcohol, showcasing lifestyle principle advocated by Kabir. Adi Granth is also having many verses of Kabir. So Kabir verses are a significant part of Adi Granth, the holy scripture of Sikhism, making up the largest non-Sikh contribution to the text. A scholar debated the influence of Kabir on Nanak and the founder of Sikhism, while some suggest Kabir's ideas were among the various influences on the Nanak, and others, including some Sikh scholars, argue that the difference in views and practice between Kabir and Nanak are substantial. So Harpreet Singh, referencing Hugh MacLeod, described early Sikhism as a movement within Hindu tradition, closely associated with in the Sant tradition of northern India, which included Kabir. However, Surjit Singh Gandhi counters this view, emphasizing that the Guru Nanak's thought and actions were fundamentally different from those of Kabir and other Bhakti saints, arguing against considering Kabir as a direct influence on Nanak. So, MacLeod categorizes Nanak within the Sant tradition, suggesting a continuity of fundamental doctrine from Kabir to Nanak. However, J.S. Grewal criticizes MacLeod's approach for focusing solely on conceptualizing similarities while overlooking practical differences and the distinct element of Nanak's teaching compared to those of Kabir's. So Kabir's poetry has extensively, incorporated into contemporary music and culture, influencing a wide array of artists across different genres. The Sufi fusion brand Indian Ocean uses Kabir's poem in their album Jhini, like blending tradition Indian music with Sufi and progressive rock elements. Neeraj Arya's Kabir Cafe brings Kabir's couplets to life by combining them with modern music styles like rock, Carnatic, and folk, asserting that their deep engagement with Kabir's teaching enhances their musical expression. So, the late classical singer Kumar Gandharvas is celebrated for his interpretation of Kabir poetry. Documentary filmmaker Shubham Birmani explores Kabir's enduring legacy through her project, producing documentaries and books that investigate his influence in contemporary India and Pakistan, featuring folk and Kabbali musicians. Additionally, the album No Strange Here by Shubha Mudgal and Ursula Roxer and Bandana Vishwas album Kabira, The Thinker, showcase Kabir poetry set to contemporary music, further testify to his pervasive impact on modern art and culture. So Kabir has been criticized for his negative depiction of women is in his poetry. Scholars like Nikki Goninter Kaur Singh and Bandy Dongier described Kabir as misogynist and described Kabir for having anti-women views.